Hey there, welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 155. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is all of the new stuff that I got for Christmas. I'm actually recording this it's about lunchtime on Christmas Day, and I had a bunch of stuff to open today, and I hoped that I would find the time to come downstairs, spend a little time by myself to open this stuff and show you guys. But I had obligations with both my family and my in-laws, and I really didn't think I was going to have a chance. However, first thing this morning, so we were with my in-laws last night. We got up this morning, and the plan was for me and my wife Vanessa to open our presents together, and then we were going to go down to my parents and open presents, and then go to her parents and open presents, and then go for dinner and all that other stuff. Anyway, my father-in-law called first thing this morning and said that somebody he had been with yesterday afternoon, their daughter tested positive for COVID, and so now that guy was waiting for a test as well. But that really kind of threw everything out of whack. So obviously I didn't interact with anybody with COVID, but I interacted with my in-laws who had interacted with somebody else who lives in a household with somebody who now tested positive for COVID. So we didn't go anywhere for Christmas. Well, the only place we went is for a COVID test. There was a place available. I wasn't sure if they'd be doing that on Christmas Day, but they were. So we went for a COVID test at like 11 o'clock, and they told us it could be 24 to 72 hours before we get a result. So yeah, that really kind of screwed up our Christmas plans. I don't know if we'll get an opportunity to spend much time with family because we'd like to get negative results back before we do. So, long story short, I've got lots of time to sit down here and open up all these toys. And I'll be honest, I'm a little embarrassed by how many toys there are to open here. I've got a lot of stuff, and first I'm going to show you the stuff that I actually got from my loved ones as gifts that surprised me, which are always the best things to get for Christmas. But years ago I made a little kind of pact with myself that because I buy myself a lot of stuff, and I do love Christmas, I love getting up and opening toys, and sometimes I don't really get toys from my loved ones. I get sweaters and socks and whatever. So I like to open up toys, so I thought, when I buy stuff in December, rather than open it up right away and put it on my shelf, I will put it aside. Even though I know what it is and everything, I'm just going to wait. I'm not going to let myself open it to Christmas. And even though I know what's here sitting on the floor beside me, just knowing that I can't open it up and fiddle around with the toy, it builds some anticipation and it makes me excited for Christmas. But this December I bought a lot of stuff, so I have a whole bunch of stuff here. So I should probably move on so I can show you everything here. So so first off, my wife, she bought me all kinds of cool stuff this year. Like, she bought me this new hoodie. She bought me this t-shirt for one of my favorite bands at the drive-in, so that's pretty cool. She bought me a new PS4 game. She bought me some earbuds, all kinds of stuff. But she always, gets me some cool toys as well. So what Vanessa got me is a reaction figure here from Super 7. So this here is Captain Deadstar. So this is one of Super 7's original creations. They have a toy line called The Worst. And the premise behind The Worst is that they just make a line of villains. So a lot of these villains are kind of generic-y kind of villains. Like, for example, this guy's a pirate with a skull for a face. They have another guy that's a tiger that's like a ninja, and they have another guy that's a werewolf that's a biker. So just all kinds of weird characters. And I just got my first Worst figures a couple of months ago. I bought a character named Cortex Commander, which is just a brain in a jar, and I got him in this format. These cards are particular to this glow-in-the-dark wave of figures. So this character of Captain Deadstar has been released previously in different colors, but when they released this glow-in-the-dark version, they put him on this really kind of nice card. There's not much to see on the back, just a list of the other characters there. I bought Cortex Commander, and I really liked him. So I wanted to go back and get another one of these glow-in-the-dark figures. Captain Deadstar happens to be my second favorite member of The Worst. So Vanessa got this for me for Christmas. So this was a surprise this morning, so this was really cool. Now she ordered something else from Super 7 as well. Another member of The Worst. And this is my favorite Worst character. This is Cortex Commander, who I previously bought in the glow-in-the-dark. So his body is kind of like a translucent blue. But this version here so I don't know if you can see him very well. But he's in kind of a white and gold outfit. And this is part of a series that that Super 7 put out called The 4 Worst Men of the Apocalypse. So basically what they did is they took 4 of their most popular worst characters, painted them in a new paint job, and then packaged them with... this is actually a reuse of the Battle Cat figure that they had from their Masters of the Universe reaction line. So the cat is the same as Battle Cat and Panther from He-Man, but the armor that they put on him is a little bit different. You can see he's got these kind of these bone-like things on his back, and it's like a Triceratops type of helmet on the cat. So yeah, this is a cool new paint job for another character that I really like. And I have 2 of the other worst men of the apocalypse on the back there. You can see that there's 4 available in 4 different colors. So I don't have the purple one yet, but I've got the red, which was actually a different paint job for Captain Deadstar, and I've got the black one as well. So I now have 3 of the worst men, so that's pretty cool. Now another thing that Vanessa got me, I believe she ordered from Big Bad Toy Store. Now this is a line of figures. It's a relatively small line of figures. They only did, I think it was 3 waves of figures, and even some of the waves only had like 3 figures in each. I think they're just out of view of what you guys can see, but just above all these Transformer reaction figures, I have some of my Sectaur figures from Zika Toys. And so if you're in the same age range as me, you might remember Sectaurs from the 80s. They were a line of action figures that were about, I don't know, say 7-8 inches tall. So they were bigger than most of the other action figures of the 80s. And they rode around on bugs. So the characters themselves were bug people, and then they rode around on spiders and flies and stuff. And the gimmick was that the big hairy spiders and flies were puppets. So you could put your hand inside of the spider and you could control his legs. And there was a little saddle on the top of the spider, and you could set your Sectaur character on there. So yeah, it's really cool. Anyway, so Zika Toys last year or the year before picked up the license for Sectaurs, although it kind of fizzled out. People didn't pre-order enough. They tried to do a Kickstarter for a 4th wave, and they didn't get enough backers. So I think Sectaurs is done. It was kind of a short-lived revival, but I got most of the figures, and I needed a couple of more. So Vanessa got me these 2 guys here. So this is a Royal Guard. They released another Royal Guard with red armor previously, and this guy here has got kind of like a nice emerald green armor, on a nice original card. I really like that kind of classic artwork there. So it's really cool to add another Sectaur to my army, because since this line has since fizzled out, I worry that these figures that are currently still available in Big Bad Toy Store are eventually going to sell out, and then you'll never be able to find these things again. Since it's not an active line, they're not going to keep doing production runs of the earlier waves. So yeah, it's cool to get this guy. So he's kind of a generic trooper type character. But then I also got this character here. So this is Mantor. So this is one of the main kind of named characters from the original toy line. So a lot of them have the same body. So he's probably got a lot of the same pieces as that Royal Guard figure. But this guy here, you see he's got a unique head sculpt, and then he's got a beard. And he's got a unique color scheme. He's the only one, I think, with the white arms and legs. Most of the other characters have black with the blue. So yeah, Mantor is pretty cool. So I'm happy to add a couple more Sectaurs to my collection. Now, so my best friend Miguel, he bought me a gift card for Toys R Us, so I'll be able to go buy myself something. But he also got me this Whiplash from Masters of the Universe Funko Pop. And this one here it's a limited edition. It's one of it was available at a convention, but these figures do sometimes show up at Toys R Us, but they usually don't show up in great numbers, and they're usually kind of hard to get. I don't really go to Toys R Us all that often. There's one in my area, but it's not super convenient to get to. So if something like this pops up on the shelf and it's only there for a week or something, I usually miss out on it. But yeah, so that's pretty cool. I have a pretty big collection of Masters of the Universe Funko Pops already. So yeah, Miguel was a little worried that I had this guy already, but I don't. So that's pretty cool that I can add Whiplash to my shelf. So the last bit of toys I got from one of my loved ones is my brother Brian, who he lives in Miami. I've mentioned him before. I live in Canada, and it's very hard for me to get certain store exclusives. like Target exclusives, Walgreens exclusives, because we don't have those stores in Canada. So there was something I did tell my brother to look out for, which was a Masters of the Universe. I don't know what the pack is called. I think Battlegrounds or something. But basically what it was is it's from the Masters of the Universe Origins. It was Battle Cat and He-Man packaged together with some other little odds and ends. So Brian said he saw it, but he said, he travels pretty light, and this box was pretty big. It's a box like this. It's got a lot of kind of empty space in the box. It's got this big fold-up flap and everything. And he said he saw it, but that it was just too big and awkward for him to buy and bring with him. So I was like, yeah, that's fine. That's understandable. But I mentioned to him, like, just so you know, if you'd ever see it again, I don't need the packaging. I'm not somebody that keeps things carded. So I'm going to open it up anyway. So if that helps, if you buy it, open it up. I'll pay you back. Just bring up the figures loose. But anyway, Brian kind of surprised me because he actually already did that. So he told me he didn't buy it, but he did. And he brought it for me loose. So I don't have the box to show you, which was a nice box. But so here's Battle Cat. Now, I already have a Battle Cat in the Origins line, so this one is, I imagine, pretty much the same figure. But this one does feature some battle damage. So if you get in close, you see he's got all these slashes and scars painted all over him. So it looks like he's kind of really been in the shit, probably fighting Panther and stuff. So that's cool, a nice little upgraded Battle Cat. Another kind of fun thing it comes with is a little platform here. So these things snap together and they make well, I'm not doing a very good job, but you get the idea. So it makes a little platform with some little pegs that you can stand the figures on. But this is in the same color, the same brick kind of layout as Castle Grayskull. So this is just something that kind of adds to the diorama aspect. I can set this out front of Castle Grayskull. It just gives me an extra little play area to display my figures, and so that's pretty cool. That's a nice little pack add-on. It also comes with these two little dragon dudes. So one of them has wings, one does not, and both of them have kind of a hand that's kind of hooked. See there? And so I think the idea behind these is that you can put them on your Castle Grayskull playset, and you can kind of hook their hands on the top, and they can kind of look like they're climbing the sides of Castle Grayskull. So that's, again, just a cute little pack in. And then he also comes with the Battle Armor He-Man with an axe and a shield. And what's cool about this figure is Mattel previously released a Battle Armor He-Man in the Origins line, which I have, and it had the same Battle Armor functionality. So how this works is you roll this piece around, and you see the He-Man logo is nice and pristine. But when you hit it with a weapon or something, then it looks like there's been a slash in it. And if you hit it again, it rolls again, and now there's 2 slashes in it. So it looks like he's taking shots from an axe if he's fighting Skeletor. So they previously released this figure, but it had kind of just a matte gray armor, which was different than the vintage toy that it was kind of homaging. The original Battle Armor He-Man in the 80s had this nice kind of vac metal chrome armor. So I think fans were a little disappointed when we didn't get that on the first Origins version. But this one here, it's got that nice reflective chrome armor. So that's really cool. That's a nice throwback. And besides the shield and the axe, he also comes with a new head sculpt, which is kind of nice. So this is kind of He-Man yelling with his wind-blown hair. And it's a cool head sculpt. That's probably how I'll display this figure. And then he's got an extra little hand here for bitch slapping Skeletor. So the last thing that Brian got me, so that was a Target exclusive. So, that's how he was able to get that for me. I wouldn't have found it up here in Canada probably. I did not ask for this. I did not know he would pick this up. But this set here is a Walgreens exclusive. And this is a set of, I think it's like 16 figures or more in here. And they're die-cast metal little mini versions of G.I. Joe characters. So I don't know if you can see them all that well here. But on the back it shows you all the different characters. And it's a pretty nice little array of little characters. You get Duke, Scarlet, Cobra Commander, Snake Eyes, Serpentor even. So a lot of cool characters in here. I don't really know where I'm going to put these little dudes, but it was kind of a nice little surprise. So thank you, Brother Brian, for this stuff. So now I'm going to get into the action figures that I bought for myself. Okay, so the first thing that I picked up, this is in no particular order, by the way. I've just got I have a box here that I just kind of was dumping everything in that I bought this month. So first up, this was something I had to order from Hasbro's website, Hasbro Pulse. This is an exclusive set of Marvel Legends. So this is a 3-pack that comes with Captain Britain, his girlfriend Megan, and Shadowcat in her kind of classic 80s outfit. So we've had Captain Britain figures in the past, but the last one we got had this kind of his more modern look, with it's got more of like a helmet instead of like a mask. Anyway, this is the look that I like for Captain Britain. This is his like 80s, 90s look when he was a member of the X-Men sub-team Excalibur. So I'm happy to get this outfit. It does have an alternate head with a beard. That's not a look I'm familiar with, so I will be displaying him like this. Now, his girlfriend, she doesn't have a very exciting superhero name. Her name is just Megan. That's all she's ever been known as. I don't think they've ever given her any different name. And she's a shape changer, so she can turn into a werewolf or a fish lady or whatever. But I don't think she's ever had a figure before. Maybe partly because she doesn't have a superhero name, and a character named Megan doesn't look very exciting on the the shelves of Walmart or whatever. But she was another key member of Excalibur, and she's a character that I've wanted for years and years. So this is awesome to finally get a new figure of Megan. Now, since this is probably going to be the only figure of her I have, at least for a good long while, I kind of wish they gave her yellow outfit that she had when she first joined Excalibur. Truth be told, this green outfit is probably more interesting, but if I'm only going to get her with one look, I'd rather have her in the look that I knew when I used to read X-Men comic books. And lastly, this is Shadowcat, also known as Kitty Pryde. I don't even know if she uses that name, Shadowcat, or has for years. Most people know her as Kitty Pryde. I think that's how they referred to her in the live-action X-Men movies when Ellen Page played her and stuff like that. Anyway, again, this is a character that's had a lot of different looks over the years, but when I started reading comic books when I was 8 years old, this is the look that Kitty Pryde had. It was like this blue kind of blouse with like a sash for a belt, big 80s hair. So I'm glad to get this look. Maybe it's not her best look, if you can look at it objectively, but it's the look that brings me the most nostalgia, so I'm glad I got it. If I do have one gripe, it's that her hair isn't big enough. It's not 80s enough. And I'm clearly not the only one that feels that way, because I've seen people online actually buy this figure and then they swap out the head, or at least the hair. You can take I don't think it comes off easily, but you might have to kind of pop the hair off of this head sculpt. And people have been putting that big poofy 80s hair from Miss Elizabeth, Macho Man's manager from WWF, and they've been putting her hair on the Shadowcat. And, it looks a lot truer to the comic books of the 80s. So who knows, maybe I'll even do that myself. But it's a cool set. I've got the Retro Sandman here. So this is, I have a Sandman figure previously, but he was a Build-A-Figure, and he was way too big. I know Sandman has the ability to grow, but when he's just walking around fighting Spider-Man, typically, he's just a normal-sized guy. So I didn't really like that my Build-A-Figure Sandman was so tall compared to all the other characters on my shelf. He just doesn't strike me as a guy that is usually that big. So not only is this a better figure, but it's just a better scale for this guy. And you can see there he's got lots of extra accessories, so you can give him, big giant sand fists, or, a big ball and chain sand fist and everything. He's got an alternate head with like a fist punched through his face and everything. So very cool. Happy to get an upgrade to my Sandman. This here is a figure I debated on whether I was going to get this year. I was excited about it, but he was kind of expensive. It's a Transformer. He's $80. And I was kind of holding off on getting him, partly because, and I've got him laying right here, I knew I was going to buy this reaction figure of him. So this is Galvatron, and this is a Super 7 figure. So this guy's just 3 3/4 inches. He doesn't transform. But I really love these figures, and I kind of thought, if I'm getting this Galvatron, I bet, why buy the big $80 one? This guy will satisfy that Galvatron itch. But I recently reviewed this figure, and if you saw that review, you saw me mention that this guy wasn't quite as good as I was hoping. He's got, not much of a neck. He's got, anyway. So because this guy didn't quite live up to my expectations, I said, you know what, I'm going to buy that big Galvatron. So here he is. This is Galvatron from the Kingdom line. And I'm glad I picked him up because I think he's awesome. And yeah, I'm excited to open this guy up. This is one of the ones I'm like most excited to open. This guy has been around he came out early in the year, but this is one I'm starting to put together ideas for my best of list, which I'm going to have to shoot in the next week. And I think this guy is a contender for that list. I don't know if he's going to make my top 20, which is probably the video that I'll do. But he's definitely a contender. Very cool Galvatron figure. Another bit of Transformers that I have that I'm excited about. And these guys are potentially list contenders too, even though I haven't physically seen them. This is a box. This was an Amazon exclusive. You can see what the toys look like on the back. So these are two Autobots. They both turn into a little truck. They're basically the same figure, just kind of painted differently. I think they got different head sculpts, but they're essentially the same figure, just with some slight retooling. But so these guys are known as Puffer and Road Ranger. And they are repaints of characters that we already got. I already have a toy on my shelf over there that I've had for months that came out earlier this year. And that is Huffer. And then there's another figure, Pipes, which is a blue version of Huffer. And then they gave us these guys, Puffer and Road Ranger, which are again repaints of Pipes and Huffer. And to be honest, all year long I thought Huffer was going to make my best of list. I really liked it. But now that I've got 3 other versions of this, once I get these guys out and look at them, maybe these guys will win out just because I like their paint job better or whatever. Who knows? But yeah, I'm excited to open these guys as well. Now this one's really cool. So this is another Target exclusive, so very hard to find in Canada. However, some Target exclusives do end up at Toys R Us, which we still have in Canada. This is a figure. I was checking Toys R Us's website all the time. I was calling Toys R Us, and they would say, no, we don't have one. Anyway, I checked Toys R Us, and they said they had it in stock in a neighboring province, like a couple hours drive from me. But my sister lives close to that Toys R Us, so I asked her if she would pick it up. She did, and she's had this toy for months and months and months, and I wasn't able to get it from her. So I was glad to know that I had it and I could stop hunting for it, but I was like, and I actually bought 2 of them. I bought one for me and one for my older brother Doug for Christmas, and I didn't really know if I'd even get them here in time for Christmas. But it was just kind of dumb luck. My father-in-law was driving through New Brunswick, going past my sister's house, and I said, hey, can you stop by there and grab these? And that was just a couple of weeks ago. So I was able to get both of them. So I was able to give my brother his Christmas present on time, which is great. And I also get one for myself for Christmas. So this is Breaker, packaged with the Ram Cycle. So this is from the G.I. Joe Classified line from Hasbro. This was a character I did not expect to see in this line, because Breaker is one of the guys known as the original 13. So when G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, first launched in 1982, it was very military based, and all the characters just had kind of bland green military outfits, like they looked very real world military. And so did the vehicles. They had a green motorcycle called the Ram, they had a green tank, a green Jeep. Like it looked like stuff that you would, like my dad was in the military. This looked like guys he could have worked with, or vehicles he could have drove around in. But, within a year or two, G.I. Joe started getting a little more crazy. They started adding, more unique characters, and the vehicles started getting like zanier and more science fiction and all that stuff. So the original 13 and those kind of plain military vehicles don't get a whole lot of time in the spotlight. They've kind of been pushed aside for the louder, brighter characters and stuff. So to get Breaker, and the fact that they didn't like soup them up and added like yellow or bright orange or neon green or anything to him, they just kept him very standard. He's in his like basic military green. The Ram Cycle looks just how it should. This is an awesome set. I'm glad to get this motorcycle. They had previously released a set like this with Baroness, and she came with a motorcycle, but she came with some red sports cycle, which was a new creation. It wasn't anything from my childhood or anything. It just felt like a cash grab because I wanted the Baroness figure, but I didn't really want that stupid bike. But they charged me an extra $40 for the set because they added a bike. This one here, I didn't really mind paying the extra money because the bike is, it's the Ram. It's one of G.I. Joe's most classic vehicles, and it's pretty cool. So Breaker and the Ram, very cool. Now, another G.I. Joe Classified figure I have, I was pretty excited to get this guy. So this, like Breaker, like the Baroness, like a lot of figures, it seems like half of the G.I. Joe Classified line is exclusive to Target, and they're part of a little subset called Cobra Island. You might have noticed that logo in the bottom here, Cobra Island. So whenever there's a Cobra Island figure, it's exclusive to Target, and it's very hard for me to get. Sure, they show up here at Toys R Us occasionally, but it's in very limited numbers, and they're very hard to find, and they show up months and months after they're released in the US, and there's still figures that were released a year ago that I've never seen here in Canada that I'm still missing from my collection. Anyway, so just a couple of months ago, they announced a new Cobra Island figure, and this is one I really wanted. And some guy on Facebook in one of the G.I. Joe groups I'm in, he said that he ordered it from a retailer in the UK, and they shipped it to him within a week. And I said, all right, well, that's what I'm doing too then, I guess. I'm not going to waste a bunch of time running around to my Toys R Us hoping to get it and whatever. So this is Barbecue. This is the G.I. Joe Firefighter. So I don't know anybody that's found this locally or anything. I don't know if this has showed up in my province at all for sale. But I got them a few weeks ago because I ordered them from the UK. And so yeah, I'm super happy to have this guy and to save myself the trouble of hunting things down forever. So yeah, really cool figure. This is another guy that I think once I open him up, he could be a contender for my best of list as well. Very, very cool. But I should mention, so to order him from the UK, he was priced very reasonably, like, $30 or so, which is what they are in Canada. But it's the shipping. I don't like paying, like the shipping on this figure was about $30 on its own, so that doubles the cost of the figure. But if you add more stuff, the shipping for like 5 figures is about the same for 1. So then that kind of brings the cost down overall, and I feel a little better about it. So I went through that website that I bought this guy from, and I was like, is there anything else on there I'm looking for? But they didn't have any Marvel Legends I needed or any Star Wars Black Series. But what they did have is some of the G.I. Joe Retro collection, and these have also been very hard to find in my area. So I got a few of those. So the G.I. Joe Retro collection is not as retro as they make it sound, but basically there's G.I. Joes, so they're mostly focusing on the 6-inch classified line now. But just a couple of years ago, they were making G.I. Joes in the 4-inch scale, and fans refer to that as the modern era of G.I. Joe, as opposed to, say, the vintage version of G.I. Joe from the 80s, which were smaller and less detailed and all that stuff. Anyway, so when Hasbro announced a couple of years ago they were going to release a new retro line, people thought, oh man, they're going to re-release the figures from the 80s from our childhood. But what they did is they just started re-releasing the figures from just a couple years prior from the modern era. And we were kind of like, well, those aren't really retro figures, but they kind of packaged them on retro cards so they looked like they're from the 80s and everything. So I didn't buy the first few sets of them because they were literally just repackaging figures that I had bought, in the 2017, 2016, like figures from just a couple years prior. But then they continued to put out new retro figures with new parts and everything. And so, yeah, I wanted to get them to expand on my modern G.I. Joe collection, as I still have all those modern figures, the 4-inch ones on display in my room here. And yeah, I'm happy to add that collection. They kind of ended it a couple of years ago, but if they want to trickle out a couple of new figures, sure. So I ordered these from that UK website as well. So here is Grunt. So this is like kind of the G.I. Joe infantry guy. Just, again, this is one of the original 13 guys. You can tell from the artwork that this is a very basic looking character. Just a green military outfit, green helmet, nothing fancy, no flamethrower, no hang glider. This is just a military dude. And I'm really happy to get this Grunt because I think it's much better than any of the Grunts they had previously released in the modern era. So this is definitely my go-to Grunt. And I have a million of these guys in my collection already, but this is the Cobra Trooper, or the Blue Shirt as they are known. I don't necessarily think these versions are superior to any of the ones they released in the modern era, but it is different. It's not just a repaint of the figures I already have. Like, for example, he's got the removable helmet. You see he's got that kind of side part haircut underneath there. He's got the bazooka. So he's got some different accessories. He's got a different paint job, newly sculpted pieces. So even though he looks like a figure that I have in my collection a dozen times over, he is new. And I also have the Cobra Officer, which probably looks a lot like the Cobra Trooper, but they are different in that they have different weapons. They have some different web gear, and the biggest difference, this goes right back to the original wave of G.I. Joes in 1982. The Cobra Trooper has a red Cobra emblem. The Cobra Officer, he's got the silver Cobra emblem, and he's also got that little triangle design on his helmet to signify that he's an officer. So there are some slight differences. So yeah, I got both of them. Also, Roadblock. So you guys probably all know him. You know, he was played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in the G.I. Joe live-action movie. But this was a guy that they struggled to get right in the 25th anniversary line. The first couple versions they made of him, he had a really like kind of small head, and his articulation was weird. He doesn't stay on his display stand very well, and he's falling over all the time. And then they switched over to making versions of him that looked like Dwayne Johnson. And, you know, I thought Dwayne Johnson was fine in the role, but I wanted figures that looked like the vintage 80s Roadblock. And I just don't think they did a very good job of it. This is definitely the best Roadblock they've released in the modern line. So I'm happy to add this guy in there. And he's definitely an upgrade to previous Roadblocks. And Scarlet, I would say the same of her. This figure still doesn't look perfect. Her torso looks a little weird. But I think that head sculpt is definitely better than anything else we've got in the modern line. So this is definitely going to go probably in the front of my shelf in front of all my other Scarlets. And yeah, pretty excited to get this one too. And this one, I guess, has kind of become pretty hard to find. I've seen a lot of people posting on Facebook saying they're looking for this one. They find it for really expensive prices on the secondary market. So I'm glad I grabbed her when I did, because I just paid basic retail for all these guys. They were about $13 or so. So pretty cool. And then the last thing I have in this box is a Star Wars Black Series figure. So this guy, I know he kind of, I don't know if you can see it with the reflection there. He kind of looks like Darth Maul. This guy is known as Night Brother Warrior, and he's definitely the same species as Darth Maul. I forget what those guys are called. And this is from the Gaming Greats subline, which are exclusive to like GameStop stores. And these are Star Wars figures that are based on different Star Wars video games. I haven't played any Star Wars video games. I don't know this guy from a hole in the wall. Like, I don't know, but he's cool looking. And when I first saw this figure advertised, I thought maybe it was supposed to be Darth Maul's like brother, Savage Opress, which is another character I don't know anything about because he appeared only in the Clone Wars animated series, which I didn't watch. But I thought that character looked really cool, and I actually bought the 3 3/4 inch figure of Savage Opress several years ago. And when I saw this guy advertised, I was like, oh, cool, they made a 6-inch version of him. Turns out it's not. I don't know what this guy's deal is. He might be... The fact that he doesn't have his own name, it just says Night Brother Warrior. This might be like maybe a minion of Darth Maul or whatever. But anyway, he's a cool figure. I'm happy to get him, eager to open him up. Anyway, I'm going to shuffle this box out of the way, and we'll move on to box number 2. Now, this next box here is something I ordered directly from the Four Horsemen. Not to be confused with the Four Worst Men. But Four Horsemen Studios is... And I haven't opened this box. I haven't looked at what's inside here at all. Like, I know what's inside here, obviously. But, yeah, so they make their own line of figures known as Mythic Legions. So they are, like, 6-inch fantasy-based figures. So, like, think along the lines of, like, Lord of the Rings. Things like that. Dungeons and Dragons. So there's a lot of orcs and knights and dragons and skeletons. And so I ordered some figures from them. So, packing material here. So these figures here are from a wave that the Four Horsemen, they usually put out, they call their wave of figures a name, like they called one like Colosseum and Arethyr and other things like that. But they only release these figures for like a limited time, and then they become, you know, very rare and highly sought after. So generally in between those main waves with names like Colosseum, they'll put out a wave of what they call All-Stars, and they'll take 5 of their like most fan favorite characters that are maybe sold out from previous waves, and they'll re-release them. So this was from All-Stars Wave 4, I think. So this figure here, this is a dude named Scaphoid. So this here is kind of like a neon green skeleton character. And when this guy was first released, I considered buying him, but I passed. Mostly because these Mythic Legions figures are kind of expensive, and when I buy like 6 or 7 of them, it adds up very quickly. So when Scaphoid was first released in a wave of figures where there was about 20 figures to choose from, I picked like 5 figures and he just didn't make the cut. Although I do tend to like the skeleton figures the most. If you look at my Mythic Legions collection, I have like, you know, 1 orc, 1 knight or whatever, but I have about 5 or 6 skeletons. So I did kind of regret not getting him after the opportunity had passed me by, and like I said, then he became, you know, pretty much impossible to find. You could pay really high prices on the secondary market, which I didn't really want to do. So when he showed up in the All-Stars Wave 4, I kind of jumped at the chance to grab him, and so I'm glad that I got him. Now, also in All-Stars Wave 4, they added a couple of new figures that hadn't previously been released. And one thing that the Four Horsemen do in the Mythic Legions line is they have a good relationship with Mattel, because the Four Horsemen, which are the sculptors that own and run that company, they all used to work for Mattel on their Masters of the Universe line. So they like to do homage figures to Masters of the Universe characters, and Mattel seems to have no problem with it. So they've previously done, figures that represent He-Man, Skeletor, Battlecat, Panther, She-Ra, Man-at-Arms, Trapjaw. So these characters, they're clearly, they don't look exactly like those characters, but the way they're painted, the accessories they have, you can tell that they're definitely, an homage to those characters. So this one here is one of the most straightforward homages I think they've done. So this here is like an orc named Bryophytus, I guess. I don't know how you would say that. I don't know if you guys can read that. Bryophytus. But anyway, so this is like an orc, and he's flocked to look like Mossman, the Masters of the Universe character. And so that toy, when they first released Mossman in the 80s, and again when they re-released him in the 2000s, and pretty much every time they re-release Mossman, he's a figure that they kind of cover with this green fuzziness, and he smells like a car air freshener. And so that's what they've done with this guy. They took this green orc character and they flocked him. And I had to buy this guy because I love Mossman, so I thought this guy was pretty cool looking. So I'm eager to open him up. And then the last one I have, this actually is not from the All-Stars wave. This is something that the Four Horsemen advertised just about 3 weeks ago, maybe. And they said, we're going to have a holiday exclusive figure. It's going up on our website for 1 day. That's your only chance to get this figure. And sure enough, they put it up on the website and it sold out like immediately. I was one of the ones that was lucky enough to act fast and get him ordered. So this is a holiday-based figure. It even came with a little holiday card. Nothing on the inside, but on the back, you get this Krampus face, and that gives you a little indication of what we've got inside the box. So this is the Krampus. So it's a little outside of the Mythic Legions wheelhouse, but if you're familiar with Krampus, I think he's like something from German folklore. He's like, I don't know his story exactly. They've made movies about him in recent years, but he torments evil kids at Christmas time or something like that. Anyway, they reused a lot of parts from their Mythic Legions line to create what looked like a really cool figure. Now, I haven't seen this thing in hand yet because I took him out of the mailer box, but I haven't seen inside of this. So yeah, I'll have to open him up later and we'll take a look at him. All right, so that's my Mythic Legion stuff. I've got one more box of stuff to go through and then we're done. So one sec. So this last box comes from Big Bad Toy Store, which is the online retailer where I do most of my toy shopping. So this is a pretty good sized box. Because what they have at Big Bad Toy Store that I love so much is they have a function called Pile of Loot. So I pre-order stuff from them, and then when it comes in stock, rather than them just shipping it to me and charging me, because as I mentioned before, sometimes the shipping to Canada is the same value of a figure. So if I buy a $30 figure and they charge me $30 to ship it every time, I'd go broke very quickly. So with their Pile of Loot function, they tell you like your pre-order's in stock. Do you want us to ship it to you now, or do you want us to hold it in your Pile of Loot, and you can let things pile up and then just pay for shipping one time. So I always let things pile up a little bit, and so that's what I've got here. And once I felt I had enough stuff in my Pile of Loot that warranted the savings, and I wanted this to arrive not so much before Christmas, but before the end of the year, because again, I think there's some figures in here which could be contenders for my best of the year list. So I wanted to make sure I had a chance to actually open them and play around with them before I decided if they were best of worthy. All right, so let me just slide this back on the floor here. Some packing material here. Okay, so first thing I've got here is from the new wave of Marvel Legends Fantastic Four retro figures. So this here is Psycho Man. So this is a Fantastic Four villain. He comes on this retro card that looks like the Fantastic Four figures that Toy Biz put out in the 90s. And yeah, so very cool. Like, I like the packaging on these guys because I was buying those toys in the 90s, so they definitely do kind of give me the nostalgic feels when I see these packages. But the other figures in this wave are mostly members of the Fantastic Four, which I actually did not buy because I already have other versions of the Fantastic Four that I think are good enough in my collection. I don't really feel the need to upgrade to these. But the other two characters, Psycho Man and the High Evolutionary, are characters that I love and that have never had action figures before in any Marvel line. So this is the first... Well, actually, that's not true. High Evolutionary, I don't think, has ever had a figure. Psycho Man actually did have a figure in the old Toy Biz line. And he's a great figure. I have that figure, and I love it. He's a character that doesn't appear in comic books nearly enough. I love his design. It's a very like Jack Kirby classic design. So yeah, this guy definitely has potential. I'm worried his head's a little small, which might hold him back from my best of list. But anyway, I'm excited to get this guy. Eager to open him up. So along with him, obviously I bought the High Evolutionary as well. So this is another kind of oddball character who doesn't get a whole lot of, he's not featured in a whole lot of comic books. But very early on in my comic book collecting career, we'll say, there was a big crossover event, kind of like, the Civil War or things like that. But there was a crossover series called The Evolutionary War, and the High Evolutionary was kind of the centerpiece of that. So he was established early on for me as a kid as a major kind of threat in the Marvel Universe. And so even though he hasn't done a whole lot since, I'm pretty happy to finally add him to my collection. Lots of Marvel Legends in here. So another one. This is Captain Carter from the What If cartoon that you can watch on Disney+. So this is Peggy Carter from the Captain America movies, and this is her represented that if she took the super soldier serum instead of Steve Rogers, and then she became a super soldier and became Captain Carter. So that was one of the better episodes of What If, I would say. And I'm not interested in buying many of the other figures from the What If series, but this one I thought was really cool because I don't have a Peggy Carter figure in my collection, so this gives me an opportunity to own Peggy, and I think it's definitely more interesting looking than the other version of her that's just her wearing like a skirt and a jacket and like her civilian clothes. So this is a much cooler figure. So yeah, very cool. Now, these next bunch of figures, I'll be honest, I didn't even really want them, but this is where Hasbro is genius and they take all my money because they have the Build-A-Figure concept. So you see here, when you see this wave of figures, you have to buy all 6 of these figures, or all 7 figures, in order to build the extra character. So with this wave of figures, I already have Shriek and Morlun, which are the 2 characters I wanted, but I didn't really want all these movie-based figures. I love the Marvel movies, but I don't necessarily feel the need to get toys of them, because I prefer the comic versions. But anyway, the Build-A-Figure, Armadillo, he is a character from the comic books, and he's a character that's never had a toy before. I was very excited to get him. But if I wanted Armadillo's head, I needed to buy this movie Doctor Strange. So that's what I've got. Movie Doctor Strange. Like, he's fine. I'm sure it's a great figure. But honestly, the whole reason I bought this thing is for this little head right here. So I'm very excited to build Armadillo. I don't think any of these figures I'm about to show you are even close to being contenders for Figure of the Year. But I think Armadillo might be. So that's why I had to get all these guys to complete my Armadillo figure. So here's J. Jonah Jameson. So this guy, again, is featured from the most recent Spider-Man movie, No Way Home. So I love Jonah Jameson as a character, but I already have a J. Jonah Jameson based on the comic look in my collection, so I didn't really need this movie version, but I needed Armadillo's arm. So there you go. There's J. Jonah Jameson. Here is Miles Morales Spider-Man. So you know him from the Spider-Verse movies. There's nothing wrong with Miles Morales. The thing is, I have 2 or 3 Miles Morales that look almost exactly like this already. So I really didn't need this. But again, I needed Armadillo's leg. And lastly, this here is Spider-Man. This is the Tom Holland Spider-Man from the movie No Way Home. He's in this black kind of stealth armor, which you saw when he wore it when he went to fight Electro and Sandman in the woods. I don't know. I can't even remember if they explained why he had to put on this special outfit. I guess it was probably just to sell me this toy. Anyway, didn't really feel like I needed this in my collection, but I needed Armadillo's leg, so here he is. All right, a couple of more things in here. So I've got another reaction figure. This is Modulok. Now, if you watch my videos regularly, just maybe a month or so ago, I did a video where I reviewed a whole bunch of these Masters of the Universe reaction figures because Big Bad Toy Store had them on sale. And so instead of being like 20 bucks, they were like $6. So I bought pretty much everything they had. And once I got them in my hands, I really kind of loved them. And there's two variations of Modulok that you can get. One of them, and they're very similar, but they're kind of different. This guy's got like green eyes instead of yellow eyes, and he's got all this purple armor, but the other guy had more of like suspenders on. Like actually, yeah, if you see what this guy looks like, green eyes, purple armor stuff on him. If on the back, you can see these two Modulok characters, they've got like shorts and like suspenders on and yellow eyes. That's what the other Modulok looked like. It was those two guys mashed together, whereas this one's kind of a variation. And at the time, I only bought the one Modulok because I thought that was sufficient. But once I got home and I loved him, I was like, well, man, they're still on sale. This is still only $6. So I went back and I ordered the other variation of him. Now I've got another Star Wars Black Series figure. So this is Tech. This is another member of the Bad Batch. So he's from that CGI cartoon that's on Disney Plus, came out this year. So they've been releasing the various members of the Bad Batch kind of staggered one at a time. So first I got Hunter, and then Crosshair, and then Wrecker. And so now this is like the fourth member, Tech. So he's kind of a, I didn't love this show, but I needed this complete team. And they're basically all kind of just variations of Stormtroopers, and I love Stormtroopers. So pretty cool figure. And the last two things I have in here are a couple of Transformers. So this here is a Transformer named Slammer. Now this guy, honestly, I don't know a whole lot about. He looks pretty cool. He transforms into this like white tank. But this guy in the old toy line from the 80s, he was just like an accessory that came with Metroplex. He was just like a little white tank that didn't even transform, but they had a name. So you had this little white tank called Slammer. He was nothing special. But now they've taken that little, what used to be an accessory, and turned him into a whole, unique character, which I think is great. They've done that with a few of the little accessories that used to come with the really big Transformers. So yeah, I'm all for this. I'm excited to open up Slammer. And lastly, so I mentioned how I had Huffer in my collection, the little truck Transformer, and then I got Puffer and Road Ranger down there. So this is Pipes. So this is the fourth variation of that same figure. So like you'll notice on Pipes, he's blue with some white. If I bring up what Puffer is going to look like here, he's mostly white instead of blue. But, so they're very similar, just with some slight paint deco changes. And I know one of these figures is probably going to make my best of list. I can't imagine all four of them making it. So I'm probably going to have to look at the four of them and say, which one of these guys really stands out to me the most? So I don't know, one of these three guys possibly. But yeah, so I'm really excited about Pipes. I had the Pipes toy when I was a kid. He was just this little teeny Transformer back then. But he was one of my favorites. And I had those in the 80s. And almost every character I've had from the 80s has been remade multiple times since then. Like, the obvious ones, say Optimus Prime, Bumblebee. There's literally hundreds of those guys. But even for like lesser characters, like say Sunstreaker, there have been 6 or 7 Sunstreakers released over the years. Pipes, they've never really released another Pipes. So this is kind of the first Pipes since the vintage one. Now, if you really want to fact check me on that, there have been other toys released with the name Pipes, but they didn't really look like this character. Like they weren't true remakes of that vintage original version 1 Pipes. So yeah, this is the first time we're getting an upgrade to that original guy, and I'm really excited about it. It's about damn time. So yeah, that is my Christmas haul. I don't know, I might just post this video as is, or I was debating on whether I should open all this stuff up and do a little split screen with everything. I don't know if we're going to do that or not. I guess by now if I did it or if I didn't. But anyway, so that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys had a very Merry Christmas as well. I certainly did. This was a lot of fun opening up all these new toys. I'm going to be opening this stuff up for ages now. So yeah, please come back soon. If I don't post another video, sometime this week, which I may because I'm off work, at the very least, I'll be posting my best of list, probably on the 31st or maybe the 1st. So stay tuned for that. That's the video that I always have the most fun putting together. So I'm really excited to kind of plan that for the end of the year. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.